Good evening and welcome to a new edition of To The Point. This evening we'll be discussing the upcoming African Union Summit. The 34th summit will be held 6th and 7th of this month respectively. And the theme of the summit is culture, art and heritage. This evening with the distinguished gentlemen we'll be discussing the African Union Summit. With us this evening is Engineer Hassan Shaaban, former Vice Chairman of Al-Wahd Party. A pleasure to have you with us among so many other titles. One would have expected, personally speaking, I expected the title of the 34th African Union Summit in the shadow of COVID-19, and I'm saying in the shadow here because all the events seem to be in the shadow of COVID-19, would be quite different. The title would be quite different, yet we're concentrating on culture, art, heritage. It's a social issue rather than the problematic economic and political issues that this continent really is facing. How come?
Really, what's happening in Africa right now, we surpassed politics, and we've established the fact that we are one continent really, politically and economically. But the coming era requires to shed light on the culture and arts and the common heritage of the continent. So I think the youth have a great responsibility to carry this slogan, because it doesn't really require more than just exposure. You need to get exposure to other cultures, have an understanding for the arts of other countries,
yes,
and try to get closer. The north of the continent have certain culture, and the south have another type of culture, but in the end the mixture of these cultures forms the African culture as a whole. So I think regardless of the pandemic, or I think Africa started a journey. It's a non-stop journey toward development and treating all the countries in Africa as part of the continent, and within the next decade I think we will see a completely different attitude in the country.
This continent has been scarred by a lot of colonization.
Definitely, yes.
Yet we still manage to retain the culture and the heritage, so to speak. Yet there is a fight, an outside fight to penetrate, to change, to work on the new generations. And worth noting, definitely over 60 to 70% of the population of this continent are from the young generation. Can this summit or such summits bridge, first of all, reinstill to the young generation our values, our culture, our heritage, our resources, and bridge the gap? Because in the past, the problem with foreign intervention really, it split up.
Definitely, yes.
The continent and caused even conflicts.
I think the use of these conferences, is bridging, the gap between cultures, facing the change of culture. Actually, we have to be proud of, of our culture in Africa. We have, our own culture, different from, of course, the European culture that, we've hosted in spite of, our will in Africa. But, we have to be proud of our culture. We have to stress on, exposing our culture to the world. We have what's so-called the African culture and arts and everything. I think we will be able definitely to give an international flavor to the African culture in the coming events and so forth.
What about terrorism, an issue like terrorism and fanaticism? Because this issue, it's a global issue, but if we talk about, because when you talk about culture and heritage and stuff, there is, when it comes to fanaticism, it's not really, religion is a camouflage to ideologies that have surfaced from misinterpretation of certain religions and certain cultures. Can we confront?
Definitely. Culture and arts and education, these are our tools to fight terrorism. The call for banning of use of violence and terrorism in Africa, the program of the silence of guns, that we are all supporting, is the thing that we need to accomplish, because terrorism is the threat that that ruins all our efforts to develop a new modern Africa. It actually kicks all the investments out of Africa. It spread fear and unjust in Africa. So I think one way or another, Africa will have to face, with all the possible tools, the terrorism, education, arts, culture, even we might have to face violence with violence under the slogan of the African Union.
Earlier in the day, the President of Congo held a meeting with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Worth noting, this is his first visit to Egypt, and he will be on the 6th and 7th. Congo will be taking the reins from South Africa as the head of the African Union. How do you see the visit, and how do you see the Egyptian-Congolese relationships?
We go way back, the Egyptian relationship with Congo. It's been like maybe 60 years since we actually started supporting the independence of Congo, since Patrice Lumumba era. At that time, even we hosted Patrice Lumumba family in Egypt for some time. Egypt was there all the time for Congo till they achieved their independence. Of course, there could be issues between Egypt and Congo in a lot of fields, mainly the field of development, because Congo is, at present, they're constructing a super dam called the Inga super dam on the Congo River. And this dam will be able to produce a huge amount of electricity, capable of providing electricity for the whole continent. It's 100 times bigger than the Aswan Dam. So right now, the continent does not really require all this electricity. I think we might have to consider connecting the Egyptian electrical grid to this dam, to the Congo grid, to export electricity to Europe, clean electricity to Europe. Europe is banning the use of nuclear power plants. And I think this project is under study right now. The Super Inga Dam could also provide a chance, maybe in the future, that we have a program in Africa to manage the water resources, because you know, the Congo River is one of the most violent rivers in Africa, and the charge of water is like 4,000 cubic meters per minute. So, and most of this water actually pours into the Atlantic Ocean actually. So you have like almost 1 billion cubic meter poured into the Atlantic Ocean every year. I think there is a big possibility that Egypt and Congo could cooperate in the field of water management. This might be beneficial to the you know, the countries around Congo, considering that Congo.
What do you mean by water management? Because this is one of the conflicts right now in the continent. The issue of water is quite a critical issue and a sensitive issue politically now.
Well, as an engineer, I will talk as an engineer actually. I think Africa is full of resources. One of the main resources in Africa is water. We have a lot of rain. The rate of rain in Africa is huge. The belt of rain in the tropical area of Ethiopia and Central Africa and Congo, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean to Nigeria, is a huge amount of water, billions of cubic meters. And I think most of this water is not fully utilized to the benefit of the Africans. Maybe because you know, this area is a tropical area and it's the greenery is natural, so you don't have an area for agriculture. And you see, but you need a program to control the flow of water and make the best of the rainfall in this area. I'm dreaming of a satellite that could actually monitor all these variables, the lakes in Central Africa, the rainfall belt in this region. You know, there is a dispute between, say, Egypt and Ethiopia. You know, Egypt is only getting about 55 billion cubic meter every year out of the Blue Nile.
Yes.
While amazing, the rainfall in Ethiopia is 800 billion cubic meter every year. Half of that seeps to the Gulf of Aden on the other side, toward the Indian Ocean. So I think if we play in a wise way and consider monitoring all the variables in the area, we will be able to control the water reserves in the different lakes, manage to all the dams in the area, the reservoirs built on rivers. We will upgrade the way we control the flow of water in all the rivers in Africa to the best of the Africans, actually.
The coming war is a war for food.
Yes.
Especially in the aftermath of COVID-19, we have noticed how even the strongest economies are having a hard time putting food on the shelves. Can this continent, and I know we discussed this issue a number of times, but now we're in very, very trying times. Can this continent be the food basket for the world?
Yeah, definitely. Because, you know, in spite of the fact that, you know, you might see some areas the population is condensed, still Africa is a large continent, and a lot of areas are uninhabited. You don't have population in it, and it is suitable for agriculture, providing that you secure water and create agricultural settlements in it. You require, I don't know, maybe in the future we will be able, Egypt will be able to play a role to provide manpower, and maybe our brothers in the Arabian Gulf could provide the finance, and we have agricultural settlements in Africa to grow food that will cover the African continent needs as well as the Middle East as a whole.
Yes.
I think, Africa still, in my opinion, is not really fully utilized the resources, and I think we still could, call it a virgin continent, actually.
Will we be capable of joining efforts, consolidating efforts to properly use those resources? And here I'm not talking just about the water and the agricultural land and stuff. I'm talking about you have a continent rich in almost all kinds of resources. You want chemicals, you want minerals, you want
we have everything. Yes.
Gold, silver, I mean, you name it.
Right.
It exists in this continent. Yet, we're not capable of utilizing the resources to even benefit ourselves.
And the biggest number of population still suffers from poverty. This is very true. Yes, definitely, we could utilize all these resources to improve the living conditions and have ambitious development plans. Africa suffered for, a couple of centuries actually from foreign occupation, and now it's time for the Africans to catch up and try to reach, a better standard of living, develop their countries. The percentage of educated population is improving. I think definitely.
Will we be allowed to do that? Because as we talk, I mean, there's constant foreign intervention. There are constant agendas to divide and conquer.
I think the people in the European countries started to realize that their governments in the past actually occupied and depleted the resources of the Africans. And if the Europeans are against illegal immigration to Europe, they might as well try to not to stop the move toward development of Africa. If Africa is developed, I don't think that there will be any illegal, immigrants to Europe. So I think it will be beneficial for the Europeans not to intervene and stop the move toward development. Well, still, I think terrorist activities are financed still by a lot of I don't want to say foreign governments actually still finance these movements actually. Using, as we said, religious slogans.
Yes.
But sooner or later, I think we will be able to defeat this, as we did in Egypt, for instance.
If we go into another issue, which is the issue of arms. This is, and I'm linking this with terrorism. You have arms, you have human trafficking, lots of socio-political issues. How can we confront those?
Well, I think having democratic systems in Africa automatically will improve the political environment, and gradually, these movements will shrink and will be diluted and will vanish sooner or later. But again, we require good, solid elected governments to control and be able to speak for the people. And I think Africa is moving toward that. A lot of countries are enjoying democracy and they have a free will. You know, I think within a decade we will be a different continent.
If we move on to another issue which really captured headlines, which is the issue of Libya. Finally, we have a ceasefire, so to speak. We have elections. A new prime minister should be elected and running the country until, I believe, December the 24th, when we have final elections. How do you see, whenever I really touch on the issue of Libya, it's like walking on eggshells, because one is always concerned that it's really a fragile ceasefire, and will this ceasefire materialize in positive direction, or will we find ourselves going back to square one again?
I think the Libyans are very wise right now. They've gained a lot of experience in the last 2-3 years during the negotiations in Morocco or in Geneva or in Italy. They've accumulated a lot of experience, and they're wise enough to really think of regaining stability and security in Libya. And I think from what I've seen recently, you know, we have a number of nominees running for this, you know...
75 participants, I believe.
Yes.
In, well, 75 participants in this dialogue, and 3 will be selected, I believe. A 3-member presidency from a list of 45 candidates.
Right.
Will the different factions see eye to eye on a selection?
I think it will go smooth. The Libyans reached the point where really they would like to see a stable government, and most of the nominees actually are patriotic and you know, educated, and
will they reunite the Libyan rank and file? Because this is what happened since 2011, really.
I think
divisions, strong gaps.
Foreign interference actually,
which is still existing.
Right. You know, the United Nations have taken a decision that all foreign troops should pull out of Libya, actually, to allow the Libyans to decide on their own what is the shape of government they want, without really the interference of foreign powers in Libya. Definitely, any foreign interference will affect the situation in Libya, especially if this foreign power realizes that once they pull out of Libya, Libyans will be able to decide on their own who will participate with them in the development of the country. Libya will be completely rebuilt. You know, you have a completely destroyed country. The infrastructure, everything requires...
Okay, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but why will the scenario in Libya be different from the scenario in Syria or the scenario in Iraq? Or why should it be any different?
Because the circumstances are a little bit different. You know, in Iraq you have a lot of religious fractions, the Shia, the Sunni. You know, you have neighbors who have certain ambitious plans. You know, like in Iraq you have Iran is close by, you have Turkey as well. In Syria you have the Iranians and the Turks again. Of course, the Syrians had to call for the help from the Russians. It's a strange combination in Syria and in Iraq. Also in Yemen, it's the same. The Houthis are completely supported by the Iranians. In Libya, I think all the fractions are there to participate in eating the cake after the party is over.
But will they be allowed, will the cake be eaten only by Libyans? Because we know others are interested. I mean, Libya is a very, very rich country in resources as well. And others are interested in keeping a foot inside.
Yes.
To capitalize on certain use of resources. And I'm trying here to be as diplomatic as possible. Will they move out? With all due respect to the United Nations, lots of resolutions.
I think they will move out. But I think there will be an agreement between the different fractions, the powers that are there in Libya, who will take what and for how long. Meaning, the United States think that they have to be there to stabilize everything and compete with the European influence in Libya. You have an Italian and a French influence in Libya.
Yes.
The Turks are there also because they were not allowed to join the European Union. But again, you don't want me to join the European Union, okay, but this is a country that I occupied long time ago, and it was part of the Ottoman Empire almost 100 years ago. So everybody is finding an excuse to be there in Libya. And I think the final word and the final say will be for the Libyans if they get a strong president, actually.
What about the role of the African Union here? Because we're talking about the summit in a few days. What role can the African Union at this juncture play in pivoting, providing or paving the way for a proper transition of, well, I can't say authority here, but a proper transition from the violence to the reformation of this North African country?
To be honest with you, during the era of Gaddafi, there was a lot of influence in Libya, in Africa, and Libya participated in a lot of projects in Africa, and vice versa, actually. Once the problems started in Libya, a lot of mercenaries came from Africa to participate in the civil war in Libya. I think one of the major tasks that the African Union will face is to pull out of the African mercenaries from Libya, because there is no certain entity that controls these guys. They're there as individuals being paid by God
different
knows
entities.
who. Right. So the first thing, the African mercenaries who came to fight in Libya on the behalf of a financier who financed this will have to be pulled out of Libya, as well as the foreign troops that came with the approval of the present government in Libya.
Yes.
So it will take a lot of work, actually, to clear the stage in Libya to make it able to perform as a free country with no influence from others on the Libyan decisions.
Today, the German foreign minister was calling on the new US President, Joe Biden, to show more engagement in Libya. The reason I'm going on to this, because on one hand we're saying an African issue should be resolved within Africa, and the Libyan issue should be resolved within Libya.
Let me put it this way.
What kind of role can the United States play, for example, now? How will it be different? How will Joe Biden be different from Donald Trump, for example, in his policies vis-a-vis?
In my humble opinion, the U.S. could finalize the situation in Libya in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
How
if
come?
the U.S. gets involved, you have to to remember that the ambassador that was killed and the number of individuals that were killed in the American embassy still very fresh in the memory of the American mind. So the Americans always considered, I've seen myself a map at one time before the Libyan revolution in 1969, that Libya was part of the United States and it was lying in the Gulf of Mexico next to Texas. So always Libya was part of the American investment in the area. It's very close to Europe, and I think there is a lot of perspectives still in the oil field in Libya. Also, I think there is a huge gas field that lies underneath the territorial waters of Libya. We will see definitely an American intervention in Libya.
What about the Russian intervention here? Because the two main players really in the region, United States and
well, the Russian existence in Libya is under a name of a company, actually. It's a company that provides protection and being paid for it. So the Russians are there at the request of a certain entity. Once the Libyans will decide what to do, I think the Americans will be able to finalize, because the Americans are a very accepted party in Libya. The Libyans will accept the American intervention, providing that the result will be to the benefit of the Libyan people.
Have the Libyan people, I know you're familiar with their culture and the way they think there. Are the Libyan people themselves ready to unite effort and get their country back on its feet? This was quite a strong, self-sufficient country. Is this will still within the Libyan people, or has foreign meddling divided the people as
well? To be honest with you, the Libyans do not have any other choice, actually. The eastern part of Libya and the western part, whatever disputes they have, it's still, they cannot survive without one another. I think Libya, as we know, is an integrated country that, will finalize the disputes between the eastern portion of Libya, which is Benghazi, and the other side, which is Tripoli. The south, of course, is still very much in favor of, coordinating with the eastern side, where you have the Libyan army is really located and mobilized in this particular area, where the red line that President Sisi declared in one of his speeches.
Before we wrap up, I'd like to get back again to the conference or the summit, like the African Union summit, and since we're drawing on culture, art, heritage, and what have you, can we come out of summits like this for a change at very trying times with more unified effort on how to move forward, how to utilize our resources. Prior to the show, we're talking about the resources and how we're not really mobilizing efforts, how our efforts are scattered. Now we're talking about economic blocks.
Yes.
Can we go as far as forming blocks in different sectors, blocks to utilize different resources? Can such a forum create those blocks?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, a matter of fact, we have something very similar to this being formed right now. I've attended personally, you know, an event like this a couple of months ago in Cairo, but it was not really exposed very well to the media. I think getting the Africans to know more about themselves and the other countries will form definitely a mass of culture, and exchanging visits between the different groups of that has to do something with culture and art, music, movies. We're going to have to move on this, actually. This is the only way that we will be able to rediscover our Africa.
Last but not least, the role of women. Because when we talk about culture, and you talk about heritage, and you talk about art, you really cannot ignore the role of women here, and a continent that has quite a large population of females, but also suffering because of inequality, because of the poverty, because of the fact that quite a large number are still uneducated due to cultural norms, what have you.
I think from what I've seen in the conferences that I've watched and attended, the African women actually are a keystone in any efforts that will be exerted to get the people in Africa to communicate. They're more positive. Actually, I've seen a lot of very positive energy in these ladies. Amazingly, they represent the African woman in a very good way.
Yes.
Educated, outspoken. Everything is perfect. I think the African women will play a major role to defeat terrorism and spread peace and prosperity in Africa. Hopefully, we will see a lot of women playing a major role in politics, because once women are, in politics, dictatorship will fade away.
Engineer Hassan Shaaban, thank you very much for your fruitful input, and thank you for the positive outlook. Your optimism is always a sort of a bright torch, let's put it that way. Thank you very much for joining us this evening on To The Point. I'd like to thank you, the viewers. We'll see you same time next week. Until then, good night.